Welcome back. My name is Joey Roxett. I'm here with my co-host, Zach Rosen.
How we doing, everybody?
And today we have an awesome interview with the king of due diligence himself. His name is the Godfather, otherwise known as Steven. And I hope you guys really enjoy this interview. I know we did. And we're going to get into it right now. Here we are, guys. We're going to start this interview with the one and only Godfather. You probably know him on Twitter, and he is the man with the most due diligence I have seen yet this far for Enzc. So without further ado, let's get him on. How we doing, Steve?
The Godfather. Welcome,
doing
man.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Hey, sorry about, I know there's a little technical difficulties we had earlier. We had you on the visual, and of course, everything isn't working out too well, but we're going to get the people what they want, give the people what they want. So
it adds to the mystery, the man behind the name. But let's hop right in, man. Do you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump right into the Enzc.
Yeah, sure. So I come from a strong product management background. So I work at a Fortune 500 company, and I do a lot of I have a strong business acumen when it comes to products, but overall, I do have a very profitable hobby, which is stocks. I've been doing that for around 12 years. Started off when I was in college and have only grown since then. So that's really where I come in. And just to let everybody know, I'm not a stock advisor, a promoter, or anything of that sense. I'm just a common shareholder like many of us in Enzc.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, once again, I appreciate you giving us another shot with this interview. And once again, we want to know, what is it about Enzc that makes this stock so special, and where's it going?
Or if you could just start out even by just how did you find it?
Yeah, sure. So for Enzc, I found this company when doing research. I spend most of my time researching before investing. And they came out with a letter of intent back in September 16th, talking about how Bioflonetics was going to merge with Enzc. And, I usually play reverse mergers. And, at first I thought, hey, this is probably going to be a quick trade. But once I started really digging into the company and what they were all about, especially when they were touting around their HIV applicability on their product, where it was effective against 95% of the strain, I started realizing, hey, this could potentially be something big. So the more I started looking into the company and doing research around their management and where they were with their technology, the more I started realizing that this has the potential of being a truly major company in the future. So, Enzc today, well, back then was trading at a fraction of a penny. It's at 50 cents now, which just goes to show the sort of momentum this company has had since then.
Yeah, and I mean, that, just to put into perspective for some people, that's within the last 4 months, I think it is, that's up over 5,000%. So, I mean, if you were to get in when it was in the trips or even, double zeros, that's an insane return on investment just up until this point. So with that type of insane return so far, how much more is there? How much more room in the future is there for growth?
Oh, that's a great question. And in terms of growth, I don't see there's a good limit right now, just because the monoclonal antibody space, that market today is valued at $150 billion, right? And in the next 7 years, it's with a CAGR of 15%. That space is going to be worth $370 billion. So even if we were to capture 1% of that market, we would be looking closer to, just 1% would represent our value being book value of about over $1, right? But again, I think honestly, with the technology that this company has and the antibodies that it has developed so far, it would be a lot more dominant. It will be a very strong force in this space when it comes to therapeutics for all sorts of diseases, and specifically viral diseases, right? So we do have an HIV, and by we, I mean the company, as an HIV antibody, human monoclonal antibody, that they're currently furthering along the lines, right? So they recently partnered, well, they haven't recently partnered. They've been collaborating with GenScript for the last 5 or so years. And they recently put out a press release saying that, hey, they're going to be producing our antibodies, and the next step would take it to Strasbourg in France and university out there, and also in Milan, Italy, under Gabriele Scarletti, to further test their HIV antibody. And so if that's successful, and they said it was going to happen in early 2021, so more likely they're working on having that work started now, they're going to take it a step further, and they're going to do animal testing. So that's going to happen at, I think it's, the California National Primate Research Center, right? And the key there is that it's federally funded, right? And it's sponsored by the NIH. And so we're going from in vitro testing to actual animal testing, which is awesome. And it's really furthering the drug along. Beyond that, more than likely we'll see an investigational new drug or IND submittal, right, to take it through the FDA process. And that alone is a key milestone, right? So the thing that people need to realize with biopharmaceutical companies is that you don't really even need a drug in the market to capture that value, right? At that point, I mean, you would expect major institutional investors or folks who are willing to invest in the opportunity to actually get in sooner as the drugs approved for those phases.
And are those cures and antibodies the technology behind the whole operation at ENZC? Is that proprietary? Do they own all of that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So they have a couple of patents out there right now. And what separates our antibodies from other pharmaceutical antibodies is that ours are human monoclonal, right? Other ones are based on mice grafting, where they develop an antibody by first taking it through an intermediary animal first before developing it. Ours are based on patients who have recovered, and that's how they graft their antibodies. And so overall, that has a better affinity and a greater chance of being successful. And this alone, it can also reduce the cost of the overall antibody treatment, right? So if you look at HIV today, more than likely, patients are paying $14,000 to $20,000 in a given year, and so a lifelong treatment will cost them $379,000, right? So with our antibody, we're able to reduce costs significantly. Where over 6 months, if it's effective, it would be a fraction of the cost with minimal side effects, no toxicity, and all that good stuff. And so there's a huge value proposition for companies that want to partner with us, either licensing our technology or actually licensing the product itself to actually take it that step further.
And I'm sorry. Go.
Yeah. So it's so much information, man. I gotta just applaud you on your due diligence and everything that you have already told us. It's almost overwhelming. It's really great. I've been telling friends and family about it, and of course nobody listened when it was low in the early sense, and now everybody's starting to jump on because they're actually doing some due diligence, which we're trying to preach right now. And one thing I really wanted you to touch on was the actual people that are in play with this. So
the team in place.
The actual team. So if you could talk about the people on the board and whatnot. I think that would help out a lot.
Yeah, and so for how the company is structured today, honestly, it's what gives me the most confidence in this company is who's actually managing it, right? So you have the CEO, Charles Cotropia, who has a very strong legal background. So he's been a patent attorney for Sidney Austin for, I think, 45 plus years. He's part of the Texas Bar Association, and his other executives on the team. You have Joseph Cotropia, which is his brother, who's a PhD and is the chief science officer and is the one that really developed Clone 3 up to this point, right? But the guy that gets me most excited is this guy they brought into their medical advisory board, Ronald Moss, right? And this guy has worked at the NIH before. He has strong connections overall to these federal governments, and he knows how to push products along in the FDA approval process. And so this guy is a complete powerhouse when it comes to actually moving your drugs along through testing. All right, so it wouldn't be surprising if we actually found out that he's the guy behind really getting us to College Station at the Texas A&M preclinical studies, or moving it along, testing in France and Italy, where they are at today right now. So this guy is really, I think, an invisible force right now. That he's really not front and center, but he's the guy that's going to be pushing the drug and technology forward.
And once again, tell me if I'm wrong, but is he also the one that is the attorney, or who's the attorney with the 40+ years of experience?
That's the CEO. So that's
okay.
Also why, in press releases, he's very matter of fact kind of guy. He'll tell you things that they have accomplished so far, and he'll steer clear from actual speculation, right? And so there's a lot going on in these press releases that you read into them that he's just not saying, right? He said that he would be forthcoming about the grants that they've applied from the NIH, about collaborations and partnerships, but he doesn't actually tell you something until it's actually done. And a good example of that was this patent that they filed for multiple sclerosis, where it was on nobody's radar, and no shareholder was aware of this. And all of a sudden, hey, we have a patent for MS out there that they just filed. So it's really great stuff. And every time he puts out information, it's very catalytic. It's very they're all major milestones. So he doesn't really put out fluff out there for folks to read into too much.
Now, quick question for you. To go back to what you were talking about before, sorry to jump around. I was thinking while you were talking, and hopefully this is correct. I'm not an expert in any of this by any means, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Currently, there is treatment for HIV, correct? But what separates treatment, or what Enzc, what Enzalytics is doing, is they have an actual cure. Just to be very clear on that.
Yeah, that is correct. So there are what they call ARBs, antiretrovirals, drugs out there, right? But they're not the same as antibodies. Antibodies is the actual defense mechanism to boost up our immune system, versus these antiretrovirals, which will put usually HIV into remission, but it doesn't completely eradicate the disease from patients who are affected. So these antibodies are, compared to vaccines, vaccines are like viruses that train your body and train your immune system to build up antibodies. Antibodies are the actual things that will combat the disease, and that's where there's a lot of excitement, especially now. Where this technology is applicable to COVID, right? So if you're listening to the news, you're hearing about all these multiple strains out there. You're hearing about, hey, there's something in South Africa and Brazil, how the virus is mutating, right? So every time you take a vaccine, and it's kind of like the flu, you need to take a vaccine shot every year because the viruses just tend to mutate. And so the key point here that this company has is that it targets viruses sites that are immutable, so sites that don't change or don't evolve or mutate over time. So if you're able to identify those sites, well, all of a sudden, the virus can't escape. You don't have this thing called a viral escape where it can mutate out of whatever drug. And so it becomes effective long term. And so that is one of the key pieces of information for this company.
And you said they were using AI to find that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're working with a data science team. And again, the CEO hasn't put out information on who this data science team is, whether it's internal or they're collaborating with other folks. But what's important here is that they're working in AI. And over 6 weeks, they said they've identified, using 88,000 different HIV isolates, they found 7 sites, which they have the technology now to actually develop those antibodies. So even though Clone 3, which is their main product line, is effective against 95 to 98% of HIV strains, with additional antibodies, you can develop a cocktail, right? So you got, maybe 3 or 4 antibodies, and that just increases the effectiveness, right? So potentially you could be at 99.999% effective against HIV with these antibodies. And so they're also applying this artificial intelligence ability to other viruses as well, including COVID, right? So they identified 275,000 isolates for COVID. And so now, they've already said they're going to start producing those antibodies at the Texas A&M site, which is quite honestly mind-blowing, because at Texas A&M, and this is a part that maybe some people have missed, is that this site is BARDA sponsored. So it's a biomedical advanced research and development sponsored, where Operation Warp Speed is partnered with. And so you have a lot of key players like Novavax who are developing vaccines out there. And here we are at the same site, same location, developing these antibodies. So a lot of the speculation goes that, potentially we could be partnering with somebody there to actually license out our technology to develop a COVID cure or a COVID therapeutics versus a vaccine.
And you know what? I think that's a great segue. Can you elaborate on whether or not they're currently partnered with anyone? If there's any, possible partnerships, mergers in the future? What's the status of that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, in the last press release that this company put out on February 1st, they mentioned GenScript, which is a biopharmaceutical company and the number one most cited company. Right? They've had dealings with Pfizer and other major companies as well, developing either components or actually antibodies for those companies as well. Right? So we're partnered with these guys, and GenScript's the guys that are actually going to produce our antibodies that we're going to ship out to France for them to do further do testing on our antibodies. Right? But in addition to GenScript, the company had put out, I think, like 3 years ago, mentioning Gilead Sciences and Johnson & Johnson as interested parties that they would be working to form some sort of partnership, right? But it could be any of these major players. And quite honestly, with the technology that we have, it almost doesn't make sense for some of these biopharma companies to actually partner with us, either for licensing of the technology or for the product itself. So that's where speculation is today. And something that's recently come up is both Gilead Science and ViiV, which is a joint venture from Pfizer. They put out patents naming our products, our commercial product names, into their patents, right? So you can take this a couple of ways. You can say, all right, well, maybe these companies are already working with our antibodies to develop the serum to actually have the drug available. Or it could just be that they're listing out a list of different drugs that it could be applicable for. But where I speculate that there is some sort of dealings going on in the back where they're seeing how successful and how successful our antibodies would be. So, I think quite honestly that there may be a partnership already that we're just not aware of.
Possible. And again, just to be clear, that's not stating as fact. That's that is an idea of something that could happen.
Yeah,
correct.
That's an opinion.
Yeah.
Yep.
How far away are we from? You kind of touched on this earlier. How far away are we from actually getting the cure onto market? What type of time frame is there to the actual application onto market?
Yeah, that's a good question. It might take several months to even get that far because we haven't even done the animal trials, animal testing yet, which is planned to happen at that research center at UC Davis, which, by the way, is federally funded and also sponsored by the NIH, which is a very key point. But in terms of actually having commercial applicability, we can license out our technology today, right, for anybody that actually wants to produce their own antibodies. Wow. And to do so effectively. So there is potential revenue streams coming in much sooner than folks are aware of. But in terms of our own antibodies, the Clone 3, that may be several months out. The one thing, there is another drug called ITV1, which is the Immune Therapy Vaccine 1, which is a heritage enzylytics product that they had, right? And so the main reason why they merged in the first place was not just to be publicly listed. It was to also have these synergies between these two products where ITV1 could be used as a recombinant to create a better binding to the actual virus itself, right? So you have the antibody, which is Clone 3, and ITV1 working together in synergy to actually bind to viruses, right? And ITV1, it has been tested in Bulgaria. I know they're still doing some toxicity studies now today, but that could come out to market a lot sooner than Clone 3.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
So now I have to play a little devil's advocate. For the people that are saying this, a lot of talk and not a lot of action being done, like when we talk about it coming to market, this and that. But from what you're telling me right now, it seems like there is a lot of action behind the scenes. Now, for those that think this is a typical OTC penny stock, what would you say to that? Meaning, like, something that just is going to go up and then drop.
It's really to each individual with their own investment philosophies. Granted, if you compare it to like a Disney or an Amazon, you have a lot more security, but in terms of an opportunity, you're not going to see, a 50% growth in a year or anywhere close to where Enzc has been, right? And so I think one thing that helps validate this company is, continuing the progress that they're at now, which is quite honestly remarkable at what they've achieved so far. And, another thing that builds up a lot of confidence that the company is doing administratively is that they're starting to audit their financials. And so the company said that before April, they said by April, if not sooner, they're going to have fully audited 2 years. And so what that does is that brings a level of transparency to the company, right? And one of the reasons why we think they're doing this is because they've mentioned outside investors. And these outside investors could be institutional investors. They could be investment banks. They can be, we don't know who they are yet. The company hasn't announced that. But as, that came as part of their tranche funding. So they're receiving funding today. We just don't know who is funding. But perhaps what we think is happening is that they've had to meet these milestones. They had to go current. They had to file everything, and they probably have to audit all their financials to receive that funding. And so, when a company finally audits their financials, the next step is to uplist, right? They will have already satisfied all the requirements to go to OTCQB, which is a higher tier in the OTC market, and would bring a greater potential for institutional investors to jump in as well. And that in itself lends to the credibility of this company. Right. And so, the price targets are not there yet to uplist the NASDAQ, but that could be something that the company is looking for in the future as well, is to say, hey, why don't we just go up to uplist the NASDAQ? But that would require, a different set of requirements that the company is just not prepared for today.
All right. Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, once again, you blew me away with the due diligence and all the information you have. Zach was talking earlier. I don't think we know of anything in our lives as much as you know Enzc and all this information. So
you're in deep, man.
Yeah,
you know a lot.
I just wanted to say we appreciate you being on here and whatnot, but we definitely have a couple more questions. One quick thing is I wanted to talk about the market cap. So is the market cap evaluated right now at the at a good price for being an OTC penny stock, and with the amount of influx of new investors, and I'm talking about not just day traders, but your average people that are stumbling upon this stock. What do you say to the people that say the market cap's too low or market cap's too high, or what are you thinking?
So market cap is a function of price and total shares outstanding, which as of Friday trading at 50 cents, it would put us at around a 1.4 billion market cap. But you gotta, when it comes to trading or at least investing, you're investing forward looking, right? You're investing in, hey, what's the potential this company has? Mm-hmm. And so, to me, at least in my opinion, I feel like it's very significantly undervalued, right? I believe that, the applicability to their technologies and their antibodies is really going to be a dominant force out there, where this company is likely to become a major biopharmaceutical company if it's not bought out sooner, right? And so, there's a lot of good speculation in terms of what the value of the company is. But to me, I personally believe that this company is at least worth, 10 billion today, just based on what the company has stated about the potential for their drugs and on their website, right? So they said that potentially in 11 years, the market itself could generate about 100 billion in gross profits for some sort of therapeutics. Not necessarily saying it's clone 3, but just in general, having an antibody out there could generate that sort of profit.
Wow.
Right. So and not only that, the best part of all this is, even with their artificial intelligence, targeting sites on COVID, which could help other companies as well. They're looking at across the board multiple viruses, right? They're looking at rabies, Ebola, influenza, hepatitis, and the thing is that these viruses all have there's commonality in terms where our technology is applicable. So if you think about the total addressable market that this company is targeting, I mean, it's the whole entire enchilada. It's a 369 billion antibody market today, right? So even if we were to capture 1%, that puts our price at over $1. So if we were to capture 10%, that would put us over $10. So that's essentially how I'm evaluating the company and how I see potential. And quite honestly, I believe with the audited financials and the steps the company is taking to get Clone 3 out to market, that a lot of institutional investors are also going to be forward looking. They're going to say, hey, this company is worthwhile. They managed to reduce their overall risk by auditing their fins, and they might value the company the same way.
That's crazy. So it's definitely not too late to get involved and get invested into Enzlytics, is what you're saying. In your opinion, rather.
In your opinion.
Yeah, in my opinion, honestly, it's too early. I think there's still a lot of value to be captured with everything that's going on. There's a lot of milestones that we haven't hit yet that I think are going to act as catalysts, right? Besides uplisting and additionally finding other groundbreaking discoveries of immutable sites on viruses, all that's going to lead up to a higher value.
Awesome. Where can people find out more? I mean, obviously they have you on Twitter and others. Is there individuals, resources that you recommend for other people to read up and, get more DD on Enzlytics?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the company said that they're going to be putting out a brand new website. And so I think that's coming out this month. That in itself is a milestone and a good hub for where investors can go hear from the company directly. Press releases and, of course, the broader community out there of shareholders putting out some great due diligence and information about the company.
Awesome, man. Hey, so is there any last bit of information that you want to leave us with, or anything that we didn't touch upon that you want to cover before we let you go here?
I feel like we hit all the key points. So if you guys want to do this again, I'd be more than open, to have another discussion.
Definitely in studio,
especially as we progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like after we hit a couple milestones, it'd probably be a good time to actually review and say, all right, well, where do we stand today? Because there's still a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of great speculation and indication that we're going to hit some key milestones in the coming weeks and months. But I'd say in 2 months from now, hey, let's take a review and see where the company is at today compared to where it was now.
Absolutely, man. Well, we appreciate your time. And if people want to follow you on Twitter, what is your Twitter handle?
It's at @realgod_father.
Awesome. Well, hey, we appreciate your time, Steve. Thank you so much. The Godfather, everybody. If I could give him a round of applause right now without disrupting the mics, I would. But thank you so much, man. This was a great interview, and that's that.
You're the man. Thanks,
all right,
dude.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime,
talk to you
brother.
soon.
We'll talk to you soon. Well, that was the interview with the Godfather, otherwise known as Steve. Really appreciate it. And Zach, what do you have to say, man? I mean, that was crazy.
Tons of information. And I wish I was knew a little bit more about the field, but that guy is smart, man. He knows a lot.
There's not too much else I can say. I don't know too much about this industry, but that's why we had on someone
an expert
that knows what he's talking about. He's done the due diligence. He's spent the hours upon hours looking into this company. You guys take it with a grain of salt. This is what we got. And
real quick, I'd say to that, if we miss something, or if there's questions that we missed, something that you guys disagree with,
throw it in the comments.
Throw it in the comments, man. We did as best as we could with this, but the public always knows best, right?
Absolutely. Well, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview. We're gonna do a in live studio with him version
eventually, hopefully.
Yeah, in a couple months, and
get more people in the financial
Absolutely.
Twitter community on. We want to hear from multiple people about
everybody
multiple
just,
things.
Give us a shout out in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you want to jump on here and you have some good knowledge about, this industry or, stocks alone, we'd love to sit down and chat. And that's that, man. I hope you guys have a great Super Bowl weekend. We bang this out as quick as we can. Sorry for the delay. Have a good one, guys.
Talk to you later.